The next reason for the studies of economics is production. So what we mean by production is that the use of input to make output. Anything that you see being the outcome of a production process is called an output. For example, you want to produce bread, so you need input. First, you need land, you need equipment, you need raw materials, for example, and you need labor, the one that will work for you so that you can produce that bread. Now, economics tries to study how this process is being used by you. But you can say, oh, how can somebody come and interfere in my affairs? This is easy. As we said, that economics tries to study the behavior of a human being. Before you think of producing bread, there had been someone in the past that was doing it. And some people tried to study his activities. So it is not a new thing. So there is even a theory that tries to make assumptions about how production can take place. So from producing something, what usually happens is that an entrepreneur will sit down, assess the community he's living in, what is their need, how can he bring the solution to the people. For example, where you are living, you find out that people are suffering from transportation. Not necessarily they don't have vehicles. No, but because they are supposed to have a vehicle that will be carrying people that don't have any means of transportation, but they don't have. Okay, how can they do? It is up to you as the person that studies economics to see, oh, how can you solve this problem of transportation? By bringing a vehicle that will be serving them. But you are not providing it free. No. Anybody that is taken in that vehicle will pay. So you will find out that at the end of the day, you are helping your community, and at the same time, you are benefiting from the process. So in this case, you produce service, that is transport. But in some instances, you can produce a good. For example, as I said, you can produce bread. Now, as I said, economics also is essential because it teaches us about how production is taking place. And as I said, production is the use of input to make output. But in another definition, it can be the use of raw materials into output. Now, as you can see here, I just gave you the example of the production of bread. It can be larger than this, but it is just about an example. Now, you that want to produce bread, you are the entrepreneur, that is you. So you have the intention of producing bread. Now, after you've been there, then you need capital because there is no business that can take place without capital. So with that capital, you will buy the equipment. That is the oven, generator, for example, water tank, and whatever you need so that you can produce bread. Then you need raw materials. For example, you need flour, sugar, water, yeast, and whatever it takes to produce bread. So that is your capital. Then you need land. That is the place of production. As no production takes place in the air, so you need a place where you keep your equipment and start production. Then you need labor. You cannot produce bread single-handedly. That means you cannot do it by yourself. You need to have someone, no matter how few, to assist you in producing bread. So that is your workers. Then finally, what you will come out with is output. That is your bread. So economics tries to study the process of producing bread, but not only bread, any other thing that you can think of. Economics tries to expose us to the study of how this production takes place. Now, the next importance of studying economics is distribution. And what we mean by distribution is the movement of goods from one place to another. usually from the producer to the final consumer through the network of middlemen. And the middlemen are the wholesaler and the retailer. Now, let me try to draw how this process takes place. For example, you have a producer here. That is the person that produces goods or service. So after the producer, then you have wholesaler. And what we mean by wholesaler is not by the name. It means that the person that buys goods at a price relatively lower than the one being charged or higher than the one being charged by the producer. If the producer, for example, is charging 100 naira per unit of output, so the wholesaler will charge 110 naira. So there is a slight difference between the producer and wholesaler. Then there is a retailer. The retailer is the person that buys usually from wholesaler. And the retailer sells the goods at a price as the market price. That means when the retailer sells the goods to you, you will not find any place where you have the goods cheaper than the one being charged or being sold by the retailer. If, for example, the retailer is selling the good at 120 naira, so that means that is the market price. So it cannot be higher than that because that is what is being charged everywhere. So that is the retailer. Then finally, the good will reach final consumer. So the final consumer is me and you, the one that use the goods for our satisfaction. So from this process, we can understand that it is economics that tries to tell us the people that are involved in the distribution of goods and services, which I said is the movement of goods from one place to another, usually from the producer to the final consumer. So as you can see from here, the goods move from producer to wholesaler, and in turn moves to retailer and finally reaches the consumer. But it doesn't mean the good always have to follow this process before it can reach the consumer. Definitely the consumer can buy the good directly from the producer, depending on the location. If the consumer, for example, is living close to the place of producer, he can buy from them. For example, maybe you have a bakery in your area and you want to buy bread. So you don't have to go to a retailer and buy from him. You can just go directly to the production area and buy from them. And they will charge you their own price, not the retailer price. So you will have an advantage of buying directly from the producer. It is just a mere theory. It cannot be a reality. But this is by assumption. It has to follow this process. Then finally, economics tries to expose us to consumption. And what we mean by consumption is spending on immediate enjoyment or survival. So whatever income you have to spend it. And sometimes you keep some portion of the income for investment or for saving. So whatever you spend for immediate enjoyment or survival is called consumption. So as an individual person, you can consume your income. As an organization or a business can make consumption. And at a government level, there can be consumption. It depends on the economic agent. As we said, consumption involves spending for enjoyment or survival. So you can think of a number of goods that you are buying just for your own leisure or enjoyment. And you can think of goods or services that you afford to buy for survival. Now, at an individual person, if you want to buy a good, the first thing you have to do is, after identifying the need for buying that good, then you search for information about where this good or service is being sold. For example, you need to buy a vehicle. Maybe you want to buy a car. Okay, now the need for buying a car is for transport. Maybe you are tired of walking or trekking, or maybe you have a motorcycle, but now you have developed. Economically, you want to buy a car. So what you have to do in the first instance is to seek for information, either from your family member or from your friend. Okay, please, where can I buy a car? So from there, you have information that a car or such vehicles are being sold at so location. So it is up to you to go there, find out, and make a negotiation about the car. But this is entirely different in the case of organization. If they want to buy something, for example, they want to buy a car. First, they will not buy one single car. They will buy it in numbers. And they have to research about the information of the firm, whether the firm are supplying good and qualitative cars or not. Without the firm knowing, they will make this research. But you don't have to make that research about the firm. Once you have the information by mouth from your family member or a friend, is enough for you. But that information, even if the person is working for the organization, brings the information about where the cars are being sold and they are qualitative, the organization would have to make a draft about to go there and search for information about where the cars are being sold. After having the information about where the goods are being sold, the next thing you have to do as an individual is to purchase the good. So you do it by yourself, or you just ask someone that you have a trust on to buy the good on your behalf. But usually people buy it themselves. But in the case of organization, they send their representatives to buy the good, because an organization is a group of people that are working together for the purpose of achieving an aim or objective. So together, everyone has their own function and purpose. Now, there are people that have the expertise of making purchase. So when they are hired in this organization, it is up to them to go search for the information about where the good is being sold and finally buy it. The next step is to form an opinion. Whatever you consume, definitely you will have an impression about that good, whether you enjoy it or not. So from there, you will decide either to buy it again or not to buy it. And this is also similar in the case of organization. They too, after making purchase of the good, making use of it, they can decide whether to buy it next time or not. But they will have to do so by making a report about the good. So this is different from the case of an individual. You don't have to make any report about the good, because it is you yourself that you are buying the good, you are enjoying it, or you are using it. And it is up to you to form an opinion whether to buy it or